Hi, this is Jan Spencer in Eugene, Oregon, and I'd like to share a little show and tell about a neighborhood event our neighborhood association put on a couple weeks ago. I was a part of that. It's just a really nice story. A small event took a good number of people to put it on. We had volunteers. We reached out to the community. We were building civic culture right here in our neighborhood. It's a good story, so I want to share it. Let's just do this here. Okay, that goes. Yeah, we call this the river celebration. A part of our neighborhood is, let's just quick go here. This is the Willamette River that forms the east side of our neighborhood. And this is where part of our event took place. We call it the Grove area because this is a Filbert Grove right here. This is the Greenway. This is public property along here. So the Grove area was one part of the event, and the other part was here in Razor Park. So we'll hear a little bit more about those two locations shortly. Let's go back. This is the nice flyer we had made for the event. And I'm just going to read this. This is a little bit of a prologue. The River Road Celebration 2024. We did this last year and everybody agreed we needed to do it again. This short slideshow documents a wonderful neighborhood event that took place Sunday, September 8th in the Greenway along the Willamette River. There were two locations, one called the Grove and the other in Razor Park. The event was a project of the River Road Community Organization. There was lots of participation from many people, businesses, and groups in the neighborhood and also in Eugene, but our focus was our own neighborhood. Our intention from the start was for this to be a River Road event to celebrate who we are. We are the River and Garden District. And our thanks goes out to volunteers, businesses, and organizations who were part of the event. And I want to mention ARCO, our neighborhood association, is affiliated with the City of Eugene's Office of Equity and Community Engagement. There are other neighborhood associations in Eugene, and many of them create their own events as well. So, and this is the website for River Road Community Organization right here. So we saw this image just a few moments ago. Of course, this is the Grove area, Razor Park. This is a bikeway that goes along the river, and downtown Eugene is off the map here, below and to the right. And it also is close to the Willamette River. This is our neighborhood here. I live back up this way. So first, a little bit about the River and Garden District. I think it's really important that a place has some background. It's just not a location that came into being the day before. There's a background to where we had our event. We like to call ourselves the River and Garden District. Well, this was a river and garden district long before the pioneers arrived. The Calapoola were here for untold thousands of years, and it was a garden and a river district for them as well. Uh, I'm not going to go into great detail here, but they made a living off the land. They managed the landscape, looked like a park. A good deal of it looked like this. They used fire to manage the landscape. They hunted, they fished, they gathered all kinds of useful plants. They lived more in the uplands because generally this area down by the river floods in the wintertime, but now we have dams upstream that take care of that, at least for the time being. So the river, we are the river district. These are just some pictures of a river road and our river. This is the Willamette River right here. It starts out up in the Cascades and comes down into the valley and flows north to the Columbia River just north of Portland. Some different pictures of the Willamette River in our neighborhood. Yes, when there's a flood, amazingly, this guy was out there surfing in a standing wave out in the river. Before there were dams, the area flooded regularly. We have events. This is our bikeway along the river, and this is a kind of a slough that's off to the side. And of course, there is a considerable amount of wildlife in the area too. It's not wild, but there are animals, beaver, and osprey, and some salmon as well. So this is the river. We also like to think of ourselves as in the garden district. And there are a lot of gardens in our neighborhood. There absolutely are lots and lots of gardens. During part of our history, between the time when the Calapooya were here and had it on their own and up to the present, it's gone through certainly a lot of land use transformations. And part of that transformation was agriculture. A lot of that was agriculture, grazing, grain production, and then sometime the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, some of those farms began to be subdivided and suburbia started to happen. So the neighborhood is definitely mostly suburbia now. Uh, and these are pictures of just a few of the just untold gardens. The soil's very good here. We have a great climate. So we do consider ourselves to be the garden district. So I want to read a little bit of this here. Those two locations, the Grove area and Razor Park, they have their own interesting history as well. Again, those are in the Greenway. They are public property, and they both have some interesting stories. In the late 1990s, 10-acre Razor Park was attracting serious attention for development, with the idea being to build an indoor soccer facility, and that would have included a lot of parking lots. Many residents of the neighborhood were opposed to that plan, and when the city had public meetings, uh, I was there at many of those meetings. Suffice to say, there was an overwhelming majority that did not want to see the soccer facility. Instead, Razor Park's master plan calls for minimal development, and the residents are leading habitat protection and restoration in collaboration with the city as well. It's a great story. The Filbert Grove, the Grove area, up until about 2010, the 65 tree Filbert Grove was a tangled jungle of blackberries, English ivy, and neglected filbert trees. The grove dates back to the late 1940s when it was planted, and that was long before the bike path was built and long before the Greenway designation. The Filbert Grove came along with the land that was purchased by the city for the Greenway. And another collaboration was created about 15 years ago to clean up and restore the Filbert Grove. So the Filbert Grove, as it is now, looks very different from the way it did 15, 18 years ago. Both locations show how the city can empower citizen initiative. The city has a program to help encourage, assist residents in different parts, all different parts of the city, to take initiative to improve public places. This has to be on public land. You can't have the city come over and help you landscape your own property into a permaculture paradise. We don't do that, although I wish we did. But the city has programs to assist neighborhoods and citizen initiative with tools, with expertise, with helping organize work parties. This is just such an important service that the city provides for anybody who wants it to make use of it. And we are making use of that, both particularly in Razor Park and the Filbert Grove, and this happens in other places around Eugene as well. So let's just see. This is Razor Park right here. Um, this is work parties. There is reliable reporting that there is more wildlife returning to Razor Park. There are conscious efforts to restore some of the natural habitat there. This is a nice picture of some restored area here. So it is a popular place, a 10-acre Razor Park. And then this is the Filbert Grove, some pictures from the Filbert Grove. This is something what the Grove looked like when we first started out to restore the Grove. It was just all overgrown. And we had help from the city to get started with how do you restore an overgrown Filbert Grove. So we've had lots of work parties, and this is what the Grove looked like. That's still 5 or 6 years ago. The Grove has regrown. In a mature Filbert Grove, you would not really even see the ground because it's a very thick uh, shading canopy. We're not quite to that point yet, but it's grown a lot since this right here. And in 2024 here in Eugene, we had quite an ice storm, and a couple of big cottonwood trees came down into the grove. Could have done a lot more damage than they did, but that was quite an amazing event. So let's take a look here about the river celebration. And of course, there's a story before we even have the river celebration. This took a core group of 8 or 9 people with a dozen meetings leading up to early September. So we met in several different locations making our plans. Of course, people had different responsibilities. So we had quite a few different groups involved in different ways. This is a list. Hopefully, it is pretty complete of groups and organizations that participated. There was outreach to neighborhood businesses to let them know about the event, and many of them provided donations for prizes that we had different kinds of games at the event, and people could win a pizza, or they could win vegetables at the corner market, or even a lube, an oil change, perhaps. It's really important that all aspects of the neighborhood are invited and encouraged to participate in an event like this. We're making improvements on that. Of course, we're not perfect, but we're working on that. We are wanting to build a community in our neighborhood. This is a graphic that I made. Personally, I was responsible more or less for infrastructure to have the site actually ready for our event. And that took some bringing different types of gear onto the site. That was my responsibility. The portable toilet. We needed to rent some tables and chairs. There's a place in another neighborhood that has a toolbox where you can very inexpensively rent gear from them. We had that's where our Apple press came from, And the city of Eugene also has event gear that they loan out to the neighborhood associations when they have events. So we borrowed that as well. So all of that had to be brought into the neighborhood. One of our neighbors has a 2-ton flatbed truck, and we loaded that up the day before the event, and uh, we delivered all that on one flatbed truck to the event site. This was picking up some of the gear from another neighborhood that was having an event on the Saturday. This is the Friendly Toolbox project where we borrowed the Apple Press right there. What a wonderful story that is. That deserves to be a story all by itself. The Friendly Toolbox project. This is citizen initiative. And here we are unloading just a short distance from our event site. You couldn't drive onto the event site, so we had to, it's my bike trailer, we had that loaded up with chairs. We had to carry gear a short distance to the the event site. And again, this is the event site. We had different organizations um, located along the bike path here. You'll see that shortly. Some of the event was actually in the Grove. You'll see that. There's a unpaved volunteer bikeway that goes from right about here over to the end of McClure. Of course, this is the neighborhood here. And then we had a number of groups along here too. So you'll see all that, but you'll kind of a little bit of an orientation there. So we're set up and the event is happening right here on the bikeway. We had signs out asking people to slow down if they were on a bike, but all these different groups here along the bikeway. And it was so awesome to see this happening after all the planning we had done. And this is that volunteer unofficial bikeway that goes back to this neighborhood street back this way. And then the Filbert Grove is back behind these canopies. So this is our neighborhood association. We had this location. Of course, we want to meet the public and encourage them to be involved with our neighborhood organization. And we exist to help make the neighborhood a better place to live. This is a bike checkup here, volunteer library. We'll actually see some images that show some of the groups that were here, but this kind of gives you a little bit of an overview here. This is our neighborhood association table, and we're meeting people, and um, and that's what we want to do. The city of Eugene was there to talk about city issues and how they relate to the neighborhood. They're very much into outreach. This is, we have a bike shop in the neighborhood, and they came to do some bike safety tune-ups right here. And they brought all their gear on a bike trailer, which is great. Here are the guys from the shop. There's me right there. So this was a very bicycle friendly event. And this is the League of Women Voters, and we would have had uh, the neighborhood volunteer library. Just nice to walk through here and see people connecting. People were connecting all over the place. Another idea that we had to encourage people meeting and greeting and making friends, we had specifically a little table and a little carpet and some chairs out with the intention of just being here. Come and sit down and have a conversation with your neighbors. So that's what this is right there. And it was next to the space I had, and there were people here almost all the time. People like to chill out, make friends, and hear what other people have to say. We wanted to encourage that. This was another group, and I took me a while to understand exactly what they were doing. But they are a group that advocates emergency preparedness And from what I understand is, imagine if there's an emergency and the grocery store has been closed for a while. What do you do with whatever you happen to have on hand if you're not completely all set up as a prepper? What do you have in your pantry? And that's what this was about, was just to take this theoretical pantry and what would you do with those ingredients to create something that you want to eat. And it was a little bit of a competition. So that was kind of a fun way to educate about preparedness. And this image here, again, shows some of the canopies and people and just kind of browsing and seeing who's there. That was a lot of fun. We also invited a group from a neighborhood that's next door to us. Irving used to be its own little town when Eugene was much smaller. And of course, Eugene grew and kind of absorbed Irving into the city of Eugene. But there's still, from those earlier years, Irving, there's a grange called the Irving Grange, and they're a very much of an important cultural, social neighborhood entity in that Santa Clara neighborhood. And they sponsor the Troop 182, the Boy Scouts. So this was just nice for them to be able to reach out and say, hey, we're here and we have things going on at the Grange because we want people to know about entities, groups that are doing good stuff in their neighborhoods. So this is where the apple press ended up, and we are making apple juice. And this is really popular. We did this last year too. And this is also in a corner of the Filbert Grove. So it's nice and shady. We did run an extension cord out here for electricity, but anybody could come and have some apple juice, and it was really, really good apple juice. You can see these kids feeding the machine back here. They love uh, the apple press. So this was a very important activity. And this is also the Apple area. And this is just a really wonderful image that shows when there's an activity, people like to be involved. And this is cutting up some of the apples. Some of them had some bits of the apple that you didn't want to put through the press, or might have been bugs. And it was a small press too, so bigger apples wouldn't fit. But once Than here started doing some cutting, and as the event kind of picked up traction, people are looking around and just spontaneously want to sit on a bucket and help cut up apples and have some conversation at the same time. So this was just wonderful just to see this happen. You know, people like to be involved. They like to feel they're doing something useful, and to do that in a social way. This really fits into my own ideal of an event and something we can have here in our neighborhood. This is a group that was there to meet the public. They want people to know that they're there, the Queer Resource Center. And that was great. They had a chance to meet and greet. I stopped and talked with them myself for a while. I had a space that I looked after, and this was about permaculture. I hung this bamboo pole from a tree branch and had all these posters talked about permaculture, and people could look at the posters about creating a more resilient neighborhood, the value of front yard gardens, uh, transforming a suburban property. And I had this big poster here on the ground, the benefits for reducing our ecological footprints for using less stuff. So I love doing this. And of course, we had a really nice bike parking area. We didn't last year. We wanted to do that this year, and this was well used. Great to see all these bikes. Another organization, again, this one also about emergency preparedness, how to make, you know, your home and your neighborhood more prepared. in the event that there is an emergency. Of course, here in the Northwest, we live in a seismic area, and the big one can happen at any time. And there's lots of reasons for being prepared and having being ready for disruption, even besides a big earthquake. So this was another very popular place, the Song Circle, and this was also in the Filbert Grove. This is a great picture because you can see way down into the Filbert Grove when we first started transforming and restoring the Filbert Grove. You couldn't see the end of it because it was just all overgrown, but we made space and invited local musicians, and people like to sing. There are a lot of people who sing in the neighborhood, and this is just a wonderful, low energy, small ecological footprint activity right here. It's people just singing. This was all acoustic right here, and just a collection of various photos right here, that little small stories right here. Here in River Road, we have a volunteer library. If you're living in the county and you live in our neighborhood, then you have to pay a lot of money to get a City of Eugene library card like me, because I pay county taxes. I don't actually live in the city, and there are a lot of people in my neighborhood who are likewise. So we have a little small um, volunteer library. So they came to talk about the library and encourage people to patronize the library. And this is a picnic table and the apple press back here. And right behind me, when I took this picture, is the song circle, but just shows uh, how inviting the Filbert Grove is. This is just great to see everybody in the shade and just kind of having a nice time. And this is looking along the bikeway and the canopies, like permacultures here, the pantry, food creations here. Fellow here is doing free massage. This is the bikeway that goes into town. This is how I go into town. I go by this place a number of times every week. Is just a great way to transport, and uh, not any cars anywhere nearby. So that's what we have for the the Grove area here. So now let's just head down the bike path. We were just the last picture was right along here. We go this way, and then along the bikeway, and we go to Razor Park. That's where we're going to right now. So this is a view of Razor Park from the bike path, and just immediately behind the photographer is the river, is the Willamette River just right behind. And as I mentioned, um, years ago with the idea of building a big indoor soccer facility and all the parking lots. A lot of this could have been parking lot. They certainly wouldn't have paved over all 10 acres, but it would definitely have impacted the site. So this is Razor Park is not going to be a highly developed park because that's what we said we wanted. We wanted mostly a natural place. So that is from a little bit of a distance. So up a little bit closer, this group here, Willamette Riverkeeper, and they are a regional organization, and their interest is the well-being of the Willamette River. So of course they're on site here to tell people about what they do, and they have river cleanups. This is another nice little view of, this is a spur of the bike path. This isn't the main bike path. This is a spur right here, but different organizations and to meet and greet. We have a reality kitchen, which is a small cafe, kind of a little bit of a um, counterculture, a little bit location there. and they're on site giving away big cookies. I didn't make it down here to Razor Park. If I had, I would have grabbed as many cookies as I could have. But just a local neighborhood friendly business right here. And this is Jen right here, and she has a real passion for bees and honey. So she's here to talk about bees and honey and advocates on behalf of bees and honey. And then this group here, um, it is Ask a Native Plant Nerd. So there are people in the neighborhood who just know all about native plants, and they're here to talk about native plants because part of the plan for Razor Park is to restore native habitat. There's a lot of invasive species in the park, and there have been just lots of work parties over the years to replant natives. And the city actually, this picture here, the city actually has a native plant nursery. And I mentioned these collaborations that go on with the city. Well, this is Kelsey, and she is a city employee, and what an awesome job she has. It's her job to work with people like me and like Becky and other people who basically kind of adopt public space and make agreements to look after that public space because the city doesn't have the time or the budget to do all the things that we'd like to do. This is what I mentioned, that this program by the city empowers people to take initiative with the knowledge and coordination with the city. But I look after the Filbert Grove and there's nobody looking over my shoulder. It's kind of up to me. But here is Kelsey, and she is there to help organize work parties, and the city provides tools, even snacks for those work parties. What a great job Kelsey has, and she loves it too. And these are all native plants from the native plant nursery, and they're giving some plants away right here. So this is really good outreach as well. And this is Jewel. She was one of our primary organizers, and she sets up this table that is where people can bring any kind of garden produce and just leave it on the table. And she has a little sign here that says, take it or leave it. You can take stuff, you can leave stuff, just to, again, share some of the bounty we have in our neighborhood because I mentioned all those gardens we have all over the neighborhood. So this is a nice little spot right here. And once again, you can see some of the undeveloped park that we have. And we also had some really wonderful fresh water biology. And this is a picture that shows this youngster here is looking at some river water with a magnifying glass, and there's life in there. The whole idea here is to teach kids and adults too that there's life here. Life has value. These would be a poster of some of the salmon that could be found in the river, certainly a lot more in the past than present. But some of the ideal here, of course, is to restore habitat so that we can kind of repair the damage that we've done. So this table and info here is all about teaching the value of nature and freshwater biology. This group here is Friends of Razor Park, and that is a neighborhood group that advocates for Razor Park and advocates for its restoration, help organize work parties there, and these are all information about what the value of Razor Park, and again about nature education, the plants and animals and that you might find living there in Razor Park. So that's what I have for Razor Park. And then just as quickly as our setup and people arrived and we had all this activity that you've seen, then after about 3 hours, it's over. And we packed up and we took stuff back to where it needed to go. And a week later, we had a group, most of those core organizers we met to sort of celebrate what we had done and talk about, okay, what were your recollections? What worked? What do we need to think about for next year? So this isn't everybody, but this is most of the core group right here. So we're nice to sit back and say, wow, I can't believe we did that. It is so much fun to create an event for the public like this. So this is my final slide right here. Celebrations and events are a core part of the human experience. People have been uh, organizing events and celebrations from a very early point in human history. This is part of our humanity, is to come together and celebrate and make meaning in our lives. Those occasions are placemaking. These events are placemaking, which means we show we care about where we live. Events are fun. They can teach us the history and meaning about where we live. They bring people together. They create a sense of identity and belonging. It's great to have some social structure available to help create events like a neighborhood association like we do. But neighbors or any really civic-minded organization can initiate an event. You might work with the city, you might not. But of course, the city of Eugene is very encouraging to have these kinds of events, so we get help from the city as well. But an ad hoc group of people could create a block party or some kind of neighborhood event as well. Events and celebrations put allies and assets into action to build solidarity and civic culture. Almost any neighborhood in any community has more allies and assets that are care and want to be involved with the well-being of the community, more there than you probably know. And when you go out like we've done and make efforts to make these connections, you find allies and assets that you didn't really know you had. It might be in surprising places. Events and celebrations put allies and assets into action to build solidarity and civic culture. And when you create events, you put these allies and assets into action, you develop and bring about more allies and assets, and that leads to more action. And it's just a ideally an ever improving circumstance for creating culture and meaning and enjoyment and actually security as well. Placemaking, showing we care about where we live. What can be better than that? So this little graphic right here I'd had from before is shows this kind of a virtuous triangle. And our event here in River Road absolutely is a good example of what this graphic looks like in real life. So my website is suburbanpermaculture.org. I have lots of content on my website about what I like to refer to as creating a preferred future. Lots of permaculture and lots of links. So with that said, I appreciate your watching. I hope that that was enjoyable, maybe a little entertaining. Maybe hopefully this causes you to maybe consider helping to organize some event in your own neighborhood, your own community with your friends. Doesn't have to be big. Start small, see where it goes. It's really a lot of fun. Okay, that's all. Thanks.